What's the most dangerous word in the English language? Well, there's one word that leads to depression, anxiety, stress, and even rage. And that word I'm going to tell you in just a minute. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, and this is Off the Couch. There's one word that really is the worst word in all of the English language that leads to depression, anxiety, stress, and anger, and that word is should. Should is a special word because it implies a demand, and I'm going to show you why it's such a dangerous word. It's a word we use every day of our lives, and you're probably thinking shoulds all the time. Even maybe this video should be different than it is, or I should be out doing something different than I am right now. We just use should all the time. But should really has a very bad problem associated with it. Shoulds imply that you're doing something wrong. Shoulds are a demand that something be different than it is. And shoulds fall into this demand category. When we look at shoulds in the English language, we're looking at this whole category of words. It's not just should, it's also ought, it's also must, it's also any kind of absolute, a black and white, that there is one right and one wrong. And that's just not how life works. Life has a bunch of grays, a bunch of different things in between, but there's rarely just a black and white or right or wrong. But yet we're taught from a very early age that should is a word that we should listen to, if you will. And that may come from our parents, but we'll talk more about that later. Let's talk about shoulds. Okay, so shoulds are something, they're, like I said, they imply wrong. They're musts, absolutes, shoulds, oughts, all of those words fall into the same category called demands. And we have different ways that we express them. We could say, I should. Maybe I should do something different. I should lose weight, or I should go and work out, or I should do work, or I should get a raise. Anytime we think something we should do and we're not doing, that implies we're doing something wrong, and then we feel badly about it, and that bad evaluation then leads to usually some kind of depression or sadness about ourselves. When we think shoulds about other people, like we think he should listen to what I say, or he shouldn't do that, or she shouldn't park there, then we think someone else is doing something wrong, and then generally we get angry at them. So the shoulds can mean, if we apply it to ourselves, we could become depressed. If we apply it to other people, we could become angry. But we also apply shoulds to life, that life should be different. Life should be fair. Life should give me these things. When we think about just the general universe and we think the universe should be different than it is, then we often feel badly about just our circumstance. And this often leads to different emotions, but a very common one is anxiety. That we feel like, oh, the world isn't what it should be, and I'm just not going to be able to survive in it the way it is, or it's dangerous the way it is, or something is bad or wrong, and then we often will feel anxiety. So you can see how shoulds lead to all of these different things. Shoulds really lead to unhealthy negative emotions. These unhealthy negative emotions like depression, anxiety, severe stress, even I can't stand it because something should be different. So we think, I can't stand it the way it is. It should be different. Or we feel badly about something we've done in the past. We should not have done that. I should not have stolen that candy when I was 7 years old, and then I'll maybe feel a flash of guilt, even though it's been many years. So that word should and all its variants, the oughts, the musts, the absolutes, the demands, they come back and haunt us over and over again. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is actually to turn down the dial. When we look at absolutes, musts, oughts, and shoulds, we really want to look at that there is something a little bit better that one can do to really turn down the volume. And when we look at that, we want to look at something called preferences. So if we're looking at a whole category of words called demands, shoulds, musts, oughts, we can actually turn it down, turn down the volume, I actually say, to a whole world of what we call non-dogmatic preferences, or how we would like things to be. So it's not that these shoulds, they're wrong just because we're demanding the world be other than it is. And we want to actually look at it more realistically, because there is a more realistic way of looking at things. A non-dogmatic preference is something like a wish, a want, or a desire. So if I look at something like, I wish I would lose weight, or I want to go to the gym, those are perfectly rational things, because we can want those things without demanding that we go. So we're not wrong if we go, but it can be something that can guide our behavior to get us there. We can say, I want that person to park in their space directly or something. We can say, I want somebody to do something. We can say, I wish that this politician would vote a particular way. Those are all perfectly reasonable and rational things to want. It doesn't make them wrong if they don't, but we can disagree with them, and we can even disagree vehemently that they don't, and even maybe communicate that we don't like what they did, and in the case of a politician, vote them out. Or in the case of, say, a neighbor who parked in a bad way, we could communicate with that person. But we won't rise to the level of anger or vitriol that we would if we start thinking in the should range. There are some things, though, that we look at shoulds and you're probably thinking, wait a minute, there are some I can think of some things where should actually might be rational, and that's exactly true. Rational shoulds are a very special category. Rational shoulds are something like, if you work at a workplace and you agree to work at that workplace, then anything that the boss tells you, like, I need you to get this assignment in by Friday, or I need you to come in by 5 o'clock, or by 8 o'clock and leave by 5, those things, the rules of the workplace, are what we call rational shoulds. Because you agree to work at the workplace, and the boss agrees to have you work there, you're both agreeing to a set of rules that then you follow through on, and those are called rational shoulds. So any kind of should that's based on an agreement is rational. That goes for wedding vows too, or any kind of relationship agreement. When people, two or more people, agree to a set of rules, then those become rational shoulds. It doesn't mean that they'll always follow them, but it does mean that they've all made agreements to follow them, and that they're going to adhere to those rules. And if someone violates one of those rules, then you can call that person out on the violation and deal with that. And then also, following the laws of the country, those are rational shoulds as well. You may agree to live in the country, or maybe you didn't agree, you were just born here and you just grew up here, but nonetheless, if you are an adult in this country, you have to follow the rules of the land. Even if you're a kid, you have to follow those rules, but then that responsibility falls to your parents who've agreed to live here. But then once you're an adult and you have the option to leave, you have to follow the rules of the land as well. So it doesn't mean you can't dislike those rules and work to change those rules, but as long as the rules exist, you have to follow them. So those are all considered rational shoulds. So those shoulds we agree to are going to be rational, but most of the shoulds that we deal with in our head and in our lives with other people, in life in general, most of them are irrational. Most of them are just coming from our own head, from our own thoughts, from our own beliefs about the world, and they get us into a buttload of trouble. So if you really want to start to work on one word, just change your should to a wish, want, or desire. Every time you say should, say, I wish, want, or desire. And then that will be something that will really help you to soften the blow so that you won't feel as angry at other people, as depressed with yourself, as anxious about life, and you can handle stress a little easier. If you find you aren't able to let go of those things and you say, but I am saying wish, want, and desire, maybe you're not really. Sometimes we can say the right words, but we really mean should. We really mean the demand. So if you're still feeling badly, even when you change the word, that probably means you still haven't changed the meaning of the word. You still are applying that irrational demand in your head. So the next time you say should, which is probably going to be in the next 5 minutes or so, catch yourself, listen to yourself, and change it to a wish, want, or desire, and see if you can soften that blow so that instead of feeling anxious, you just feel concerned. Instead of feeling depressed, you might just feel a little sad. And instead of feeling that anxiety, you might also feel concerned. And instead of feeling anger, let's say, about someone, you might feel maybe annoyed. And those are healthier emotions because they actually help us do things. Sadness helps us grieve. Annoyance helps us communicate our annoyance without getting rageful and angry. And concern actually helps us address things. So if we're concerned about things, we actually step up and address it versus just cowering in a corner or going into a fight or flight mode. So the next time you think of should, just change it to a wish, want, or desire. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, and this is Off the Couch.